Hello, guys. I'm here in Stockholm for a few days where I'm attending a workshop on China engagement in the global south. And we're having a series of discussion about how China is engaging with different part of the world in the global south. What does it mean and all of that. And while I'm here in Stockholm, something really interesting happened yesterday in Changsha. China's foreign affairs minister gathered 53 high-level African delegation in Hunan to talk about the implementation of the FOCAC that happened in September last year. The discussion was around what has been done, what's going to happen, and how China has been moving forward, and how the resolution of the FOCAC have been implemented so far. So a lot of declarations have been made, a lot of promises, and of course a lot of achievement that China Foreign Affairs Minister spoke about what China did since September last year. I'm not going to go into detail into that because we've made a story about that. But there is something that really caught my attention, is the announcement that was made that China is going to lift for all 53 African countries the tariffs on export to China, meaning that all African countries will be able to export free of taxes to China. But the interesting part of it is the conditionality that comes before that. And because the text is saying that China is ready through signing a comprehensive partnership agreement, economic partnership agreement with African countries. I'm not really using the exact word, but this is the idea. Signing through a partnership agreement with African countries lifts the tariff for all 50 African countries. And I think that's the key element, because that idea of a comprehensive trade economic partnership with African countries was raised in FOCAC last year. In the final declaration, China mentioned that. It was really interesting as element because it was showing a certain sense where China wants to move further in its relationship with African countries in terms of trade and and economic engagement. The interesting part, because it was interesting because it made me think of what we had, the ACP EU agreement. I think those who've been familiar with that, you know that it was an agreement where the EU signed an agreement with African countries and Caribbean countries in terms of economic and trade engagement, how they're going to trade and how they're going to help development, reciprocal development between the grouping of countries. And I think that China is also moving into that direction as well, where they're talking about larger, comprehensive trade agreement with African countries. What those trade agreements will contain, it's yet to be seen. But I'm suspecting they're going to emulate what I've mentioned before, the EU Africa Caribbean trade, the ACP agreement. And I'm suspecting that China is looking into building special policy when it comes to trade, special engagement when it comes to development, and special engagement when it comes to investment, Chinese investment in Africa. I think that China wants to create a context, a special context, a special framework, legal framework where Chinese investment, Chinese trade, Chinese financing are happening with African countries. They want a more formalized and more uh, straightforward framework that's going to provide a certain advantage and policies for Chinese investment to happen in Africa. I don't know if on the continent African countries are picking up on that, because since the FOCAC last year when it was mentioned, I haven't seen any reaction or mention of that by African media or analysts or experts talking about that. But the fact that China came back with it again yesterday, and today we are June 12th, it came back yesterday on June 11th. The fact that China came back with it and putting it as I call a conditionality to lead to remove all the or to remove all the tariffs coming from goods coming from Africa for all 53 African countries. For me, it's significant because it really speaks about China's agenda for Africa, and I think that China agenda for Africa goes beyond what we see now. It's going further to all the different issues. It's going to cover different issues: trade, investment, development issues, and I think that we should be paying attention to that. And yes, that's what I wanted to share with you. This is a short video. I'm gonna make a much more elaborated video on that to try to understand what does it mean, to try to understand, to anticipate where our relationship with China is going, where African relationship with China is going, where what can we get out of that? What does it mean for us? And if it's really doable, if we even wish that to happen. So yes, that's my short introduction. This is just a sneak peek of the video that's going to come later this week, where I'm going to unpack that declaration and see with you what does it mean. In the meantime, tell me, what do you think, and do you think that it's wishable? Do we want to have a larger, comprehensive, continental trade and development agreement, investment agreement with China, or do we want to go, or do we want to remain the way things want to remain? And this is my, as I say, my short thought about what's happening. And keep in touch, and see you in a few days for a much more elaborated video on that.